the experience of writing an excellent paper and then finding that after the teacher gives you an A on it, no one else reads it? Well, actually that's pretty common, and that's one of the reasons that I'm very lucky to introduce Nicole, who's taken one of her projects that she actually did for an honors project and turned it into a presentation that was done at the University of California, Berkeley, during the Bay Honors Symposium. It was the 5th annual, and it was one of the best presentations at the event. And I thought it was very appropriate because Nicole actually was selected to be a student at UC Berkeley, which is one of the hardest colleges or universities to get into. Nicole was actually originally a student in my speech classes. She took Speech 1A, which is Elements of Public Speaking, and Speech 20, which is Interpersonal Communication with me. And one speech after another was stellar. So when it came to the end of the semester, she decided to do a greatest hits collection and sort of bring everything together. She had done a speech on Michelle Bachmann. She had done some presentations on Kentucky Fried Chicken, believe it or not. She had all sorts of different things that she shared over the course of the semester, and she sort of brought that together with a very interesting dietary choice, which is popular, but not popular in the exact form that she's going to hint at and describe. And that's what really makes this speech unique. It's a completely different take on the typical student speech about encouraging you to change your diet. So I really think you should pay close attention to Nicole Anderson, one of the superstars of City College of San Francisco and soon to be a superstar of the University of California, Berkeley, as she presents the project which became her speech at the symposium at the Bay Honors Consortium. Well, here's Nicole.
Hello, my name is Nicole Anderson, and today I'm going to talk about the speech that changed my life. A speech that I gave last spring in Sammy Kutzi's Speech 1A class, one of the many that I've given as a communication major at City College in the last 2.5 years. So what was this speech all about? Well, it wasn't a speech that I gave on Bill Wilson, who is the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, an organization which certainly helped change my life, but since I'd already had 4 years clean and sober at the time I gave this speech, didn't change my life. Please hold your applause. And it wasn't my speech to persuade in which I proposed that the city of San Francisco should consider adopting a citywide smoking ban. I argued that attitudes had been changing and evolving since the 1950s when everybody smoked. Movie stars, Santa Claus, presidents, and even doctors smoked. But even worse than that, at that time, smoking was being presented as being not only not harmful, but even beneficial to your health. And it wasn't my speech to entertain, in which I presented the top 6 reasons that Michelle Bachmann should be the Republican nominee for president. One of which was, number 3, was that Bachmann is not Sarah Palin. But poor Sarah, by the time I gave the speech, she had fallen so far down in popularity, in fact they couldn't even stand her in her home state, that I had to replace her with a new number 3, which was Donald. Oh, we like to kid the Donald. In fact, he slid pretty far down himself. And my speech that saved my life was not the one that I gave about my addiction to Kentucky Fried Chicken. No, that wasn't it. Nor was it my Aristotelian analysis of the FDR's 1936 "I welcome their hatred" speech. It wasn't that. Nor was it my survivor debate speech, in which I portrayed Elizabeth I and studied hours upon hours of Glenda Jackson film in order to get just the correct British accent and just the exact amount of haughtiness. But it all worked against me as one of the students voted me off the balloon. Why? for being too haughty. Can you imagine? So, speech that changed my life was one in which I explored the theory that a whole foods vegan diet and exercise could not only prevent, but even reverse heart disease. Now, I first became aware of this regimen the prior year in political science class, where I was shown a film on the rave diet. The rave diet, you might ask? Did it consist of doing a lot of ecstasy and dancing all night in a mosh pit? No. RAVE stood for no refined foods, no animal foods, no vegetable oils, and no exceptions. Now, for a year I tried following this regimen, and I had already lost about 80 pounds on Weight Watchers, and I was able to at least maintain that 80-pound weight that I had inherited from my years in Texas when I consisted on a diet of Mexican food and Texas barbecue. But I began researching for my speech, and I discovered a lot of evidence. In fact, I discovered a mountain of evidence that did show that a whole food vegan diet and exercise could prevent not only heart disease, but many of the most debilitating diseases we have today. I found a report in the book Vegans and Vegetarians Today, in which Dr. Dean Ornish put together two groups, a control group and, of course, an experimental group. The control group received traditional care, while the experimental group was given a diet of, mainly a vegan diet with the 10% fat, and a regimen of meditation, yoga, and exercise. Now, at the end of the trial, the control group reported greater clogged arteries and greater chest pain, while the experimental group had no chest pain and unclogged arteries. The other study that I cited was the China study. Dr. T. Colin Campbell had previously learned that in the lab he could actually turn on the growth of cancerous tumor cells by feeding the lab rats meat protein, and then switch them off by feeding them non-animal protein. So in the 80s, the Chinese government discovered that in many of the provinces they were getting an increased epidemic of disease, and in some of the provinces there was hardly any disease. So Campbell was given the opportunity to go to study throughout China, and in short, what he found was that there was a direct relationship between the consumption of animal food and disease. And as I was about to present this speech, the movie Forks Over Knives, which details the vegan diet, became into the mainstream, was featured on Dr. Oz. Now, I want to step back for a moment. I searched high and low, like we're supposed to do, right? I searched high and low for counter-arguments that would refute this claim. The only credible thing that I found that really struck home with me was the fact that this diet was just too hard to follow.
It's hard work. I understand how hard it is. It's hard work to try to love her as best as I can. It's hard work. It's hard work.
Well, I have to admit, for an addict like myself, it was hard work. I was trying to reverse years and years of bad habits. So I realized I needed a little bit of help if I was going to try to follow this diet. So I downloaded a Kindle version of Dr. Neil Bernard's 21-Day Weight Loss Kickstart, which was a whole foods vegan diet. Now, unlike Weight Watchers, where I had to track every bite of food I ate, weigh and measure everything, Bernard said, just follow the plan, and you don't have to worry that much about portions. Well, telling a food addict that she doesn't have to worry about portions is kind of like telling Willie Sutton that he can have the keys to the bank vault. Now, I can tell that most of you are too young to know who Willie Sutton was. Well, Willie Sutton was a bank robber. He was asked, why did you rob banks? And he says, well, that's because that's where the money is. So I was losing weight, but as I was following this plan, I was still overeating. So I realized that I had to do something else. I was losing like maybe a pound a month, and at that time I had like 30 pounds to lose. So I said, let's do something else. So on July 25th, 2011, last year, I started attending weekly meetings of Overeaters Anonymous. Now, I went to these meetings and I defined my abstinence as following the Neil Bernard plan, and I also changed little habits such as eating late at night and even nibbling on things I never ate standing up and that type of thing. So then I began losing weight, sometimes about two pounds a week. But then after 2 or 3 months, I started plateauing again. So this was like in October, November. I was thinking, what's going on? Well, I realized that no one in my Overeaters Anonymous group was losing any weight, and worse than that is everybody seemed like they didn't want to hear my message that this great thing that I found about Whole Foods veganism. In fact, a couple of people seemed actually hostile about it. So I said, man, what if I could just start my own group and get people to come to meetings who want to follow this new way? And I didn't have time to do that, but then I had another epiphany. Then around December, I said, well, why not try to start a Facebook group? So I said, well, I have no idea if this thing is going to work using a 12-step plan on Facebook, but I started it, and I just tried certain things like having people check in and having weekly meetings, and lo and behold, it's working.
Hi, my name is Dennis Bender, and I'm a food addict. I've been on this road for about 3 months now, and so far I've lost 54 pounds. I still have 220 to go. I know it's quite a bit, but I know I can do it now, as I have a higher power to support me and bring me through it. And I found that out through Overeaters Anonymous vegan meeting, and through the help of Nicole and the Facebook friends and my family, I've been able to conquer a lot of these demons. That doesn't mean I don't still wrestle with them every single day, because I do. But understand that every day I still take one on and I still beat him, and I'm going to continue to beat him until they've all been beaten. And I just want to say thank you, and let's keep this going on. Let's keep moving on.
Thank you, Dennis. The check is in the mail. So in December, again, I was at a plateau. So I had heard that many of my members on my own website and other vegan websites were using the Dr. Furman plan. So it was December, so Dr. Furman had his holiday challenge. So I signed up for the Eat to Live program, started following that, and I want to talk just briefly about his program. His theory is that you can load up on highly nutrient-dense foods like leafy vegetables and broccoli. Eat as much as you want, because the more of these foods you eat, it actually helps you to lose weight. And fresh fruits, vegetables, and then you can have a little bit of maybe an ounce or two of raw nuts and seeds. But what you really stay away from are the cheese and the refined oils. You know, cheese and dairy products in general have one purpose, and they're to take a little baby calf, feed it milk, and grow it into a 500-pound cow in the time of just a couple of years. And for those of you who think that olive oil is healthy, it's really not. I mean, it's just another refined oil. So his theory is that the standard American diet, the SAD diet, is actually causes for most people a low-grade addiction. So in order to alleviate that addiction, you have to just cut out all the refined foods. And I must say that for me, the cravings really have disappeared. I don't really crave those foods that I used to crave, just like I used to crave, taking a drink. It was really that bad. So this has become somewhat of a panacea. Now, just a few thoughts before I close out. Since I was in Texas several years ago, I've lost about 120 pounds. Since I signed up with Weight Watchers 5 years ago, I've lost about 100 pounds total. I've lost 30 pounds since I started on the vegan diet, 20 pounds of which I lost on Furman. Today, I set a goal for myself in 2004, a lifetime goal, and I'm actually 2 pounds from getting to that goal, which I've never even come close. And I've got a lot of plans, and I was accepted into Berkeley, and at 64, which I'll be in August, I'm going to begin my baccalaureate at Cal Berkeley, and I also want to get a master's degree. So it's really important for me to be healthy as if I'm going to ever achieve all these goals, right? So I'm going to leave you with one final thought from Dr. Neil Bernard. If beef is your idea of real food, you better live real close to a real good hospital. Thank you very much.